Hi, this is Laura Forehand from the Desert Sanctuary podcast. As we have authentic discussions about deconstruction and religious trauma, please be aware that some episodes may contain stories of sexual abuse and or suicide. Please take care of your mental health. We love you. Welcome to the Desert Sanctuary with Carl and Laura Forehand.
Often when we have doubts about religion or simply want to ask questions, it can feel like we are wandering out into the desert.
We would like to invite you to join our sanctuary, the Desert Sanctuary.
We've tried to pick guests that would resonate with and challenge us and our fellow seekers here in the desert.
We believe that a key to the journey is to keep asking good questions, and we believe that all stories are sacred.
Our hope is that you will find life and healing for your body and mind, and that you will be able to be where you are and be who you are.
And now, here is our show. Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary podcast. I'm Laura Forehand. I'm here with Carl Forehand, and we are continuing our series of good questions. And so today's topic is, what do I feel? So I'm going to pass it over to you, Carl, and let you get us started on this topic.
And it's been a while since we recorded. I think, all along in the process of recording these, we've been starting a new podcast with Stuart and JD. Then JD came to visit us from Taiwan for 10 days.
Yep.
So it's been a little bit, been kind of hectic and crazy around here. And so this is probably an appropriate thing to talk about today. Is what do I feel? I think the further along we go in deconstruction, at times we've had to get in touch with our feelings, and I think getting in touch with our feelings is crucial. And it sounds, based on our previous experience with the religion and things like that, it sounds silly. Say get in touch with your emotions or your feelings because that was minimized. But it's also kind of suggested that you should just prioritize your faith, focus on faith and it's going to work out and so on, and then hoping that your emotions and feelings and all that will come along, when in reality your feelings, your emotions, what you feel inside, what you feel in your body is actually a part of how we're going to heal. And it's giving us messages that help us get in touch with our body and what we feel, and then it has clues to what we can do to get better.
Yeah.
We sometimes say we have to feel it to heal it, right? And so then a friend, Dr. Paul, developed a phrase, a part of me feels. And when we can say a part of me feels and point to where it is, sometimes that's the key to getting in touch with our inner child and then being with that part of us for it to integrate. But we have been taught to ignore our emotions, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think, we can center that around church if you want. I mean, I do think there's a huge part of that is, well, if you just have enough faith, then you won't be anxious or you won't be sad or whatever, or joy is the emotion that's okay to feel, but anything that could be kind of negative probably shouldn't feel that way. But I also think that, we have to consider that some of our emotions cause other people to feel uncomfortable. And so that's where we get that bypassing and stuff like that from, because they're uncomfortable with our sadness or with our grief or whatever. So, I mean, I do think religion plays a big part of it. But also, I just think as a society, we haven't really learned to sit with each other and, not say anything. Yeah,
right.
Not say anything. Just, just sit with somebody in their time of stress or sadness. So yeah.
Yeah, and even in our home life, and when people get upset, when people feel those emotions and want to express them, it makes it hard, right? It's uncomfortable, like you said. We don't know what to do with it.
Well, part of that is because we're not really taught how to,
Hmm.
you know, adequately express our emotions because we have been told to stuff them down or look on the bright side or, whatever other platitudes you want to put in there.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of it is, you know, when some when anger comes out or frustration or whatever, we don't know how to, and like you said, if you're dysregulated, it is hard for your, brain to make sense in the moment. And so, yeah, it can get messy, but I don't think that we've really learned how to, that's not something that's taught. I mean, I think it's getting better. Like I see especially our daughter with our granddaughters, and her husband doing more of that. It's okay to feel what you feel.
Hmm. So with that, if I don't validate my emotions, I bury them deep. I try to um, show dedication to other people and determination, commitment. I say the things people want me to say, um, but burying that emotion or ignoring it doesn't ever make it get better. I
Mm-hmm.
remember teaching that lesson to the kids and saying almost nothing gets better when you just ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
almost nothing. And trauma, that's when we're traumatized, is when we're unregulated, we can't resolve it. And because we can't resolve it, we stuff it down. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something you're going to have to deal with again later. Maybe it just compounds something you already have, or maybe it's just a new trauma that you're going to live with. And when you get triggered the next time, it may be worse.
Right.
So the trauma and shame never get better without some kind of action. So we've learned this thing of what do I feel and where do I feel it. So I wrote, reflecting on my experiences from the past years, I encourage everyone to frequently ask themselves, what do I feel and where do I feel it? This practice helps me connect my mind and my body, providing an opportunity to process trauma and heal past wounds. Ignoring these emotions guarantee they will resurface unexpectedly soon enough. And I think we may in this series have already quoted this verse, but I want to quote it one more time. Eugene Gendlin says, what is split off or not felt remains the same, but when it is felt, it changes. So I'll just leave you with that much of the quote,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But when we don't permit the emotion or the feeling, we don't acknowledge it just kind of stays stuck
Mm-hmm.
in our nervous system. Some people say the trauma is stored in the body keeps the score. So, we just keep those negatives there, and they have no place to go. So when something triggers us that's similar to that, then it's gonna come out sideways, as we
Mm.
say, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna cause us trouble, right?
Right.
So acknowledging how we're affected is a truer form of bravery. That's what I was just
Mm-hmm.
sitting here reading this statement that I made several months ago and trying to decipher it. But it's really a pretty good point, I think. It says acknowledging how we are affected is a truer form of bravery than suppressing our emotions and overlooking our pain. So we consider it valid or valiant
Mm-hmm.
to stuff things down because I'm tough. I'm getting
Right.
through it. I'm persevering. I'm climbing up the mountain. I'm doing whatever. But uh, embracing our feelings allows us to trust our intuition. By recognizing those emotions in our bodies, we can better reconcile with our past and make progress towards the future. So it's a much better form of bravery to go inside and see what we have there that may be tough to deal with and may be hard. But it's a better form of bravery because it leads to integration and healing. The other kind of bravery leads to more damage. You know, we're just plowing ahead, ignoring what's bothering us, and that's not the best kind of bravery.
And a lot of that, negative bravery, if you want to look at it, that way, leads to that toxic masculinity type stuff, like I'm tough, I'm a man. And not that women don't have to deal with that too, because I think they do. I think for women though, it's more like I'm tough, so I'm just going to be quiet and hold it all inside. And for men, I feel like it might lead to a more aggressive kind of attitude about things. So I don't know, just an observation.
Yeah. I hope we get all deep in our understanding of trauma and learn about regulating techniques and things like that so we don't create more trauma. But also working with a therapist, trauma-informed therapist, spiritual directors, people like that to get through this. My therapist would say, let's check in with our body, right? Benedictine sisters said, what are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? Different ways to say that. But how about just for a few minutes if we talk about not necessarily real specific, but what ways we healed and some things that helped us along the way to get better.
I mean, I think for me, it was just learning how to speak kindly to myself, things I would say to other people, I would not say to myself, I would validate other people's, emotions or feelings or whatever they were going through. But if I was going through it, it's like, why am I still dealing with this? And the truth is because I wasn't ever dealing with it. So that's why I was still dealing with it. So, I've had to kind of learn to take a step back and, give myself permission, if you will, to feel whatever I'm feeling. I'm getting better at it. I'm not perfect every day with it, but
Yeah, so that was very real for you because you teach children, right? You teach third graders and to for any of those children, if they were distressed, you would immediately, we've learned some things about that, but you would
right.
immediately go to them and comfort them, right? Say kind words to them. But then when it's yourself, when it's your inner child, what are the messages then? If you
Yeah.
talk, speak, feel with that part of you, what are the messages?
Well, not so much anymore, but it just used to be similar to like, why are you still dealing with this? Why can't
Right.
you just get over this?
Yeah.
And, or just ignoring it altogether. So, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, started when I think when I left ministry, I was looking for what am I going to do next. So I took some spiritual direction training. Also, we went back through Breakthrough. Is that right? About that time. And a lot of those things kind of worked together to had, that weekend thing where I went to the place at the monastery. And all of those were learning, beginning to understand that my inner self, needed to be dealt with. And, the chaos of this week has, brought some of that back up and revealed more places and more things that I need to deal with. So
Yeah.
it's an ongoing thing.
I think life does that. Just
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
I love the fact that there's at least a few men, including my son, that that I can talk to about some of those things, and they speak the same language, and they're not afraid to admit they have some mental health issues,
Mhm.
and um, really encourage people to tune into our the unlearning curve is what the new podcast is called, and we are going to every fourth segment we're going to be doing mental health moments. It's just
Mhm.
something new we're learning about mental health,
Mhm.
and from a pastor and another pastor and a pastor's son,
Mhm.
formerly, maybe we could all talk about. Uh, Maybe this next one, JD and I are going to have to decompress
Yeah,
and
maybe.
talk about, when we came back together and opened old trauma wounds,
Mhm.
and how can we deal with those. And I sense that it'll be meditation and working with my body. What do I feel? Where do I feel it? And then get it in touch with those things so that I can integrate those. And in addition to that, probably by the time this airs, we'll have gone to the Attachment and Trauma Network conference in
Mhm.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that. Probably spend the next week getting our energy back up to go
Mhm.
do that after a week of family and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and family's not a bad thing. I mean, it's
Right.
not a bad energy or anything like that. It's just, you know, it was 8 years since the last time we were all together, and I think that was at a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's learning how to, like, you just don't pick up where you left off, because
Yeah.
people grow and change and life circumstances change. So, yeah, so I think that's important to, take some time to, I think, personally decompress, if that's the word, I don't know. Um, and then come together and decompress together. So,
Yeah. There's a book that almost everybody reads called The Body Keeps the Score,
mhm.
by Vander Kolk, and um, that's the common reading. I mean, almost everybody in the trauma fields mentions that
Yeah.
book, and then something else.
Mhm.
We have our book called Evolving from Religious Trauma,
Mhm.
and some of the other books that I've written also talked about my healing journey and the specifics of that. So
Mhm.
I'd encourage you to see that, the Being book, and the Tea Shop
Mhm.
both deal with, the things I went through. So
Yeah.
I hope they can be helpful. Evolving from Religious Trauma also has videos now out on our YouTube channel, which is called The Desert Sanctuary,
Mhm.
instead of Carl Forehand. And like I said, we'll also be addressing those in the Unlearning Curve podcast. But we hope that all of you make your mental health and your trauma. We hope to make it priority, and that you work on it, and also realize that this doesn't magically go away.
Right.
It's not an easy answer. There's some effective solutions. We're learning more and more every day.
Mhm.
Um, People are writing more books and doing more conferences and teaching us about trauma, but it's hard work.
Yeah, I think one of the things that going back to Dr. Paul, that, when you start doing this kind of work, one of the things he said one time, to me when I was talking to him about stuff, he said, "Well, it's no wonder." And there's something, you know, freeing in that statement, I guess. It's just like, oh, I'm not just being ridiculous, or, the things that you've been through, whether it's religious trauma or other types of trauma, it's no wonder that your body reacts the way it does to certain situations when they come back up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like saying a part of me feels that was a real, um, good, good statement for me to hear, because for a while, when you do that negative self-talk, you feel like it's all of you, like you're just 100% messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can say a part of me feels anxious, then it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And the same is true when you can say, well, it's no wonder. It kind of validates that, yeah, your trauma was real, your situation was real, your circumstances were real, and it's no wonder that your body is feeling, reacting, trying to cope the way it is,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you don't know any other way. So,
Yeah. And that lower part of your brain reacts. Your
mhm,
cortex goes offline,
right.
flipping your lid or whatever you want to call
Uh-huh.
that. That, and so you're not thinking logically, but when that thing in the present, kind of connects you back to something in the past, it feels extreme and it feels, really out of control. But to process it and realize, it's no wonder
Hmm.
I'm reacting this way. Look at what's still buried there.
Right.
And then that can, I think, not so much from your logic brain, but just from that connection that's made, um, we can heal and move forward and
Hmm.
react less. And so,
Or maybe react in a more healthy way.
yeah, there you go.
Maybe.
Responding instead of reacting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else to tell you. I just hope that everybody will do some work in this area.
Mm.
The specific process that we studied first was called focusing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other names for things like that, and a lot of therapies. Go through some of them in the Evolving from Religious Trauma book. There's several things that are effective. There's, if you know what's bothering you, then EMDR is a good thing that our friends talk about. It helps them. Counseling with a trauma-informed counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Learning about the brain and how the brain reacts,
Mm-hmm.
which is something we've done through whole brain teaching. I'm just kind of following you and uh, supporting what you're doing, but then the Attachment and Trauma Network does a lot of work,
Yeah.
different things, different
Mm-hmm.
techniques and methodologies and
Mm-hmm.
so on. So check it out.
Yeah.
It's worth, I think, I don't know about pastors' wives, but pastors read too many books on leadership and theology and all those things, and very little about mental health, and also very little about women's stories,
Mm-hmm.
which also teaches a lot about how to get better. So,
Yeah. And probably 99.9% of their congregants are dealing with some sort of, trauma or, mm, mental health issue. So, that's not an accurate number, but you know what I mean? Like more
mhm.
people than they think. I mean, we can't just pray it away. We can't just give it to God. We've got to actually do work in that area.
Yeah, I think the figures say that 1 in 3 have religious trauma, but I think almost everybody um, has some form of that, different
Hmm.
um, things that cause us trauma in the past and things to deal with.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think too, like there's a lot of research these days in epigenetics, which has to do with like that trauma can be passed down through our DNA.
Mhm.
So, like it's not just like a one-time thing. It can be generational. Poverty, things like that. That's all generational trauma.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for tuning in and listening to us today. I do think that these good questions are going to be put into I'm actually compiling them all into some kind of writing. They are on the blog right now, and if you want to go that way, if you're a reader instead of a listener, go back and get much more verbiage in the blog, but I'm also putting it into some kind of book. Haven't settled on exactly what that looks like yet, but stay tuned and keep reading, keep listening. As always, be where you are, be who you are, and be at peace.
Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.